Good evening and welcome to the coffee table. Today we are going to talk about design. And it's not just going to be about one aspect of design, but multiple aspects of design. So Mehr, let's start with you. What is design to you?
Hello to you.
Yes, that's the first aspect of design.
Design is everything. The set that we are sitting on right now, that's also design. This phone is a product of design. Probably this pencil is too. The way something looks like, it's beyond what it does, and it's before what it does.
Okay.
Because,
before and beyond.
Before and beyond, because at the end of the day, even if a thing doesn't really have a good design and it doesn't really look very good, you can still use it in a productive manner. But for people to notice something in a world that has so many products, I think design is of immense importance in my
considered opinion.
No, in my very humble
opinion. So with that, let me introduce our guest today, Dr. Suleman Shahid. Dr. Suleman Shahid is an assistant professor at the Lahore University of Management Sciences. He's a design specialist. He went to the Netherlands to do his doctorate in design. So Doc, welcome to the coffee table.
Thank you very much for having me.
I hope you like the design of our table.
Yeah, certainly, and beautiful cup.
Thank you for for that. So tell us, right? We have a particular, let's say, viewpoint on design. For us, this cup looks nice. This glass is this table looks like that. But what is design to you from where you look at it?
This million-dollar question,
Million-dollar question.
What is design? Which is very difficult to define, maybe. I think when you ask me, I think design, many people define design many different ways. Some people look at the aesthetic aspect of design, some people look at the functional aspects of design, some people combine both. And for me, I think I look at design in 2 or 3 different ways. First of all, for me, design is a way of problem solving.
Okay.
Second thing for me, design is a process.
Okay.
So you take steps and then you try to achieve your goal through this process. And I think thirdly, it's indeed about aesthetically pleasing and functional.
Yeah.
That's the aspect about design. And I think another thing when I look at design and people talk about it, that very often, people take design maybe as a noun.
Okay.
People take design maybe as an adjective.
Right.
It's a property.
Right.
It's beautiful, it's aesthetically pleasing. But when you take design as a verb, it becomes dynamic.
Yeah.
It becomes a process.
So I have designs on you.
Yeah, so exactly. So
that is one of the very kind of...
Exactly, so I think it has to go beyond noun.
Yeah.
It has to go beyond adjective.
That's a very, very interesting perspective.
So, and then when it becomes verb, it becomes very dynamic.
Right.
And the verb part doesn't kill the adjective and noun part.
It doesn't.
Which means, as an action, it would have different properties. Yeah. It would be aesthetically pleasing. I would like it. I'll appreciate it. It would have all those static qualities.
Right.
But then, it's doing, it's action, it's dynamic, and it helps.
Wonderful.
And I think on the top of it, it serves a very meaningful purpose.
So you started,
No, sorry, why design? वो सवाल करते हैं ना, stereotypical, what made you choose design as a child? Were you interested in how things looked?
So, that's a different story. My father would be watching it, So I think I always wanted to be a designer, maybe an architect. Okay. But then, the same old story, if you're an architect, how would you earn money? And computer science was very hot at that time, so I ended up with computer science. But at the back of my head...
don't make money?
Exactly. The rumors had it at that time, and I think the design part was always at the back of my head. So when I went to Germany, I had a chance to study design in a very different way. I went to Netherlands, Eindhoven, and then I studied product design, industrial design. And I think that's how I sort of started learning about design, the practicalities of design. And more important, I thought that design is such a powerful tool to change the world. It has all those sort of ingredients that you can actually change people's lifestyle. You can persuade people, and you can help people. I think that's where That's why it has become a big buzzword.
It has.
And it is so important nowadays that everybody talks about design.
So you started with saying design is about solving problems.
Yeah.
Right? And it's about that process,
process
through which you solve a problem.
Yeah.
So let's look at simple stuff around us, right? So let's take the rickshaw.
Yeah.
Right? The venerable rickshaw that we've all grown up in,
Absolutely.
we've all ridden around in. What would you say about the design of the rickshaw?
Well, I think from my perspective, it has both aspects. You know, if from a hardcore functionality point of view, this is very functional. It's a great tool, great machine on our roads. It takes a little less space. You know, it's easy to drive. And more importantly, you know, it's easy to maneuver when it breaks. In many different ways, you know. Aesthetically, might not be very pleasing.
Why? I think the Italians designed it. Right?
We like it.
But maybe, you know, the one you have seen outside Lahore Fort, the truck rickshaws and everything else.
What is it called? The Rangila rickshaw.
Rangila rickshaw. And then there's also this pink rickshaw in Pindi.
Rangila rickshaw in Lahore?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Lahore.
You need to discover your city.
I know.
Yeah, so they're the very famous one. But I think, and then, you know, if you look at from an experience point of view, I think that's where it connects very nicely. A rickshaw becomes a great savari when it serves a larger purpose.
Sure.
You know? It becomes economical.
It's the quickest thing to get around.
Yeah, and it becomes economical.
When I'm in a hurry, I take a rickshaw.
Exactly, it has a business value. It becomes economical. It is functional, and for many people, let's say it's aesthetically pleasing. And that's exactly what I call about. It is aesthetically pleasing for you, might not be for me. So there is a subjectivity.
You might have a different.
Exactly, but there is a subjectivity there. But for both of us, we know that in terms of number of minutes it takes from us from A to B, rickshaw might be the fastest way because it's objective. So, and I think that's where the design sort of moves in, subjectivity and objectivity.
You know what they say about the rickshaw? Where the front wheel fits, the rest will follow. So the rickshaw driver is focused only.
You know so much about rickshaw. I'm very intrigued.
I love rickshaws.
Seriously?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
let's take a rickshaw drive. Through Lahore. This is very interesting. Computer human interaction and social experience lab. And the word that I noticed the most was child-computer interaction. And you are working with, you're making things with children with special abilities or disabilities.
Abilities. Special abilities.
Special needs.
Special needs. This is wonderful, but again, why? How did you see anybody around you who needed help or?
I think it was a design challenge. First of all, I think what designers do, or maybe what we do as designers, we practice a lot of empathy.
I was coming to that. That has to be empathy.
Exactly. So, if we go back to the empathy, phenomena, the worst thing about bad design is that we get used to it.
Right.
And it becomes our habit. And then we don't mind, and we just simply digest it. And designer, because practice empathy and it becomes a very exhaustive process, we don't digest these things. We're always critical. We look at the world from a different lens. And then, and then when we don't take it as a habitual thing, we have to keep our eyes open. We're not lost in this noise. And I think because of that, we're able to identify what is a good design, what is a bad design, unlike other people who get used to it. We are not. So every time I look at the bad door, my mind would tell me, Suleman, it is a bad door. Because continuously I'm thinking about, I'm evaluating the world. But you, maybe as a regular user, you will look at the bad door the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, you would say, it's just a normal door. And I think that's where, we designers come in.
Acceptance.
Acceptance. We don't simply, and then we say we are also activists, in that sense, because we don't really say that.
Activism. Huh?
Activism.
These days you've got to be very careful.
Careful with that. I know. So that's, I think, that's where, the design part comes in, the empathy part comes in, how to think, how to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, and then see what are the troubles. And when I connect that with children with special needs or different abilities, I think I found it, I think it is very, very important to address that, that sector. First of all, I truly believe that there is a good population we can help them to bring back to the mainstream.
Absolutely.
Be it autism, be it intellectual disabilities, dyslexia, cognitive disabilities. And on the other end, when we talk about aphasia with elderly, we talk about dementia with elderly, we talk about Alzheimer with elderly. There's a chance deeper and deeper, and then design can play a great role in improving their lifestyle, in making them independent. And if you take as a design challenge, I think
it's quite interesting that you're working with children and older people.
They're like they're the
yes,
same.
people who need help.
They have challenges.
They have challenges, but there are similar challenges.
No,
for
it's
example.
very interesting. I mean, interesting in an empathetic and a compassionate manner. This is, he said.
I think design thinking is about that, isn't it? It's about
empathy.
looking at what's around
looking
you
at the
and saying,
needs and.
Yeah, I love the fact. I love that definition of a verb. And say, don't think of it as a noun and an adjective only. Think of it as a verb. It's about doing something.
Doing something,
right,
and
to make a difference to somebody's life. So that is a very, very interesting aspect.
You can also, please tell me about some of the apps that you have made for these.
So one thing
children.
I like to comment on, when I started working with elderly and children, I found one thing, that there are so many commonalities.
Of course.
Somebody who is suffering maybe from aphasia, and somebody at early childhood.
What exactly is aphasia?
So it's a it's a disorder because you have issues with your memory loss. You have actually language loss. So you're unable to comprehend the language. And
so communication becomes a
problem. Exactly, communication issue. So it's primarily a communication issue. But then very often it comes with the multiple disabilities. So you can have multiple physical disability, you can have aphasia, and then you have other disabilities. So for example, kids who have issues in learning language, you can actually map the same issues the person who has lost the language. And then when you try to sort of entertain these two groups, you can find a very interesting overlap. So whatever you make for a kid who is unable to learn a language, you can apply to the person who has lost the language. And then in this way you can sort of bridge the gap. So very often I try to sort of bridge this gap, and when you work for one population, half of the time you have done half of the work for the other population.
That's true.
And on the top of it, I think it's a very interesting design problem, because to understand the needs of these people, and we are humans, sometimes it's very tough to understand the needs. And we are humans, and it's very tough to not to be emotional, when we work with these people. And I think to control that.
But I think emotions play a very big part in what you're doing. I was just going to say that it's not about being about achieving things and about reaching a scientific or a computer or an academic milestone. You actually they're making a difference
to somebody's life.
Making
I
a
think
difference.
So.
I think the reference to emotionalism is saying,
I know what he's saying.
You have that empathy, you feel, but you got to step back, right? And you got to solve that problem. So
because if you're emotional, you don't solve a problem. But if you take a step back, you are passionate, you have empathy, you're emotional, but you keep your senses at the right place and try to solve a problem. I think that passion, that emotion, actually derive the whole process.
Is a wonderful combination.
And then if you're only functional, if you're only a machine, if you take an only rational approach and there's no empathy and emotions and passion, I don't think you can make a product or a service which people love or which actually improves the lifestyle. And for me, lifestyle is a key thing, And that's how to make people independent. You change the way they live.
You got to hold that thought. We're going to take a short break and we'll come back and we'll talk more about this. I want to touch the aspects of creativity.
Certainly.
Right? What does it really mean in the context of design and solving a problem? Right? So it's not just the functionality, the engineering part of it, but also the creative thought.
Thoughts.
So we're going to take a short break and we're going to come back and we will talk more about design and how it makes a difference to our lives and how the most godlike quality we have is creation. So take a break and come back to us. Welcome back from the break. So we were talking to Dr. Suleman Shahid about design being a problem solution aspect, the aspects of that. We're talking about empathy, right, being a critical factor of design, making a difference to people's lives. It's not just about creating something which looks good, but doing something which actually has impact. So now creativity, right? My belief is that creativity is the most godlike quality that we've been gifted with by our Creator. I call these the original 3D printers.
Yeah.
right? We can fashion
Muscles.
things. We can fashion things
Yeah.
with our hands.
Yeah.
We've always done that,
Yeah.
from stone to bronze to metal to
Yeah.
iron to silica to any kind of things, ceramics, whatever.
Yeah.
Give us a material and we'll make something out
Yeah.
of it. So how do you look at creativity?
I think creativity, you know, if you look at from a design perspective, has been researched a lot.
Yeah.
You know, people have been you know, writing books and articles, and they have been trying to understand how it is being developed in kids, how do we grow with creativity, how do we grow in creativity, and how do we grow out of creativity.
Right.
You know, so once Picasso said that everybody was born creative.
Yeah.
We educate people out of creativity.
Out of creativity. We
you know,
stop their creativity.
Exactly. You know, so which means to reflect on that, which means it is just not the God-gifted thing.
Yeah.
Which means you can educate. You know, there is a way that you can improve it, and there is a way that you can degrade it.
Right.
You know, there is a way that you can stop the whole creative process. And I think when you take a perspective in design, we talk about this thing very often. So, and I think the biggest debate in design is that to what extent it is just not a process,
Right.
but the power of the man who is doing the process.
Yeah.
The creative
Or the woman.
of the woman.
Otherwise,
Yeah, sorry.
you-
Yeah.
No, no. I'm fine with this.
So the no gender. Yeah. It has. It's a sensitive issue. You
I
know.
have no insecurity.
Okay, so you know, so I think so you can develop also.
Right.
You can equip yourself with the right tools
Right.
and techniques, and then you can improve your creative process.
Techniques and tools I can understand.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I think what I love was, you know, the child.
Yeah.
The child has the freedom
Yeah.
to imagine and think.
Absolutely.
And that's creating.
That's creating.
Right? We stop them from doing that.
Yeah.
So we take the creativity out.
Yeah.
You know, this
That I think-
creativity thing has reminded me of the 2013
Take
Scarlet.
us back to your childhood and tell us.
First, I want to talk about Scarlett Johansson's
Yeah.
movie,
Right.
2013 movie, Her, in which she is this voice
Yeah.
on the phone. And the Joaquin Phoenix, he falls in love with her.
Right.
And he's like, he has this completely obsessive relationship with this
Voice.
voice.
Yeah.
And it's
So he's
all about,
imagining
it's
her.
all about, no, it's a, because it's a sci-fi movie. It exists in a world that doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
But you know, just as we thought there wouldn't be phones that work
Elon
everywhere
Musk
in the
would
world.
disagree with you. He says this is a simulation 10,000 years
This
down the
is-
line.
Down the line, yeah.
Not 10,000. It was like
We're probably just pieces of code.
it was, but it's just
The
so.
13th floor phenomenon.
That's the thing. What they I've noticed about sci-fi movies is that they show human mind going in every inconceivable direction,
Yeah.
and then there's a mess.
Yeah.
They don't want your creativity to be without
Unbridled or uncontrolled or
without
unfettered.
no holds barred. I mean,
Yeah.
there should be some limit. So, but children.
Are we designing our
What
world?
was your question?
Are we really designing the future, right, of
So-
what we are going to be as a species? Are we designing our environment,
Yeah,
right, that
you
will
know-
mold us into being who we are and what we are?
Yeah, I think that then it becomes a very sort of a philosophical and
Yeah, I love philosophy.
exactly. You know, I do. You know, one of the best thing I've done, maybe taken courses on philosophy.
Yeah.
But I think we are shaping the way we would like to live,
Right.
and there's a very hard debate that how far do we want to go with this?
Yeah.
You know, we are indeed affecting. The things we design would start designing us.
Right.
You know, so there's this code that the
I think
way.
that's just a Hollywood thing.
Yeah, you know,
No,
but
no, it isn't.
But this is, you
What
know,
Hollywood imagines
AI
happens.
but it
the
really depends, you know.
AI,
It really depends how do you look at the way things are affecting us. So this product,
Artificial intelligence.
this product in my
Yeah.
hand has absolutely changed the way I live.
Absolutely.
It has changed the way I think. It changed the way I behave. It has completely changed my social contract.
Yes.
But it's human brain, it's human mind that's behind
We
it.
did, but it's taken over.
We've taken over, you know. So,
You see, it's very confusing. Of course, it's all you or whoever.
Yeah.
For instance, you know, if we talk about Steve Jobs,
Yeah.
he didn't create the phone.
well,
he created
he did.
the way
The
iPhone looked and
smartphone,
all the
Yeah.
Apple products. What I'm saying is the artificial intelligence. No matter what word you use, it's all human intelligence.
yeah.
And how it has been used.
yeah.
It is
But-
human beings who write the logic into it and all
And-
that.
Yeah.
But there is a growing kind of apprehension that it'll reach a stage, and already it has,
Yeah.
they designed some artificial intelligence. It started to develop its own language.
That's very scary.
Right? It started to talk to
It's scary.
Exactly, but it's a different direction. You know, we can go in.
Yeah.
But I think if we go back to the design part, and if we see, I think so there are different aspects of design, and one aspect of design is which talks about ethics. You know, that is it ethical that we design something which is so persuasive that it will affect me?
Yeah.
You know, and
give me an example, please.
So, for example, you know, if you look at this Facebook, you just want to browse it. And you just want to go on and on and on and on, and there's no limit, right? So it drives you into...
You're talking to a Twitter addict.
I was just going, you know me so well, I was going to say I don't use Facebook, but
yeah,
okay.
for example, Twitter is the same
Twitter,
thing.
I keep reading.
Keep reading, you know?
Yes.
So there is never a stop, you know, and there is never, is it a good design? It is a great design for Twitter because they capture you engaged. Yeah. It's a great design for that human being. Maybe not. Maybe not. Because it sort of distracts us.
It's a form of addiction.
A form of addiction.
Of course.
So good technologies are very addictive. They nudge you at the right time. It's like going to the supermarket. And then at the checkout, you have the right things at the right spot, you want to buy them.
Yeah, the impulse buying.
The junk.
Impulse buying.
The junk.
The impulse buying. And I think you can translate that into digital world also. And I think that's where...
And our local shopkeeper used to, as children, add those two toffees instead of giving us the change.
Yeah.
And
so
you know, it becomes part of the habit.
Like the sabzi wala gives the dhania and the mirchi.
Yeah, exactly. You know, to keep. I think the more interesting thing for us is to sort of go back and reflect that how this whole design movement is running in Pakistan. What are the you know, what is the future? Because I think there's a great
opportunity. You've been having these design baithaks, right?
Yeah.
Which is like a monthly thing, right? Where people come and just talk about design. So different speakers and different people. Yeah. Even the name is a design aspect.
Pakistan,
calling it the
Pakistanization of...
it's indigenization, right? Localization and all that. So you've been looking at design in Pakistan and saying, okay, you know, what is it that we are missing out? Where do we need to go? You know, how do we need to look at design? Like you said, look at it as a verb besides a noun and an adjective. Think of it in terms of the lens of empathy. And saying, okay, you know, what do I do? How do I solve somebody's problem? Using my design skills, using my ability to create things, right? So tell us about that.
So, you know, when I look at, design in Pakistan, the first and the biggest thing I saw when I moved back to Pakistan after about 15 years was that there's a lot of confusion that what design is.
Okay.
And I think that has created a big problem.
Right.
So we look at the design from its functional value, the design for business, design as a selling thing, you know.
Right.
And very often, and I have seen in universities that there is no difference between design and arts.
Right.
You know, so very often, you know, I have heard people saying that this painting is designed.
Right.
And I would say it's a great piece of arts, but might not be design. You know, maybe both have a process, but maybe both have different end goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, both have steps, you know, but the end product is different.
Right.
You know, so that has been my biggest concern when it comes to design, that we're not producing those students who are actually designers. You know, I think in my opinion, that's a first major thing.
Right.
So when I joined LUMS, you know, and the best thing about LUMS is that, you know, you have a lot of liberty that you can start doing things in your own way.
You can do a lot of research.
So I, you know, we at LUMS started, you know, a design lab. You talked about chisel, computer, human interaction, social experience lab, you know, looking at the research.
Chisel is a nice word.
Chisel is a nice word because I like chiseling also. You know, it's a great activity. It's action.
Clever.
It's action. You know, so it's an action.
It's an action plus chiseling reveals things.
It reveals things. You know, and it's a dynamic
Michelangelo's
process.
David.
Yeah. Again, it's creativity. Chisel is to create.
I mean, David is always there. He was just trapped inside that slab of marble.
Absolutely, absolutely. So going back to this, so I started this. You know, the one I did was a UX Pakistan conference, which is happening again, the third year, and next month. So we bring people and we talk about, you know, the practical aspects of design. We try to, you know, connect industry with academia, which I think is very, very important because we need to talk about the business aspect of design, the functional aspect. But then I also realized, and then, you know, there are other conferences. For example, there's a one in Islamabad. They're doing a wonderful job. Then there's a one in Karachi.
Things are happening.
Things are happening. You know, so people have realized that the design is important and we need to talk about these things. But then I also realized that one meeting in a year is not enough. So we need to do that on a more regular basis. So we started with
Design
better.
You know, when you talk about, again...
you should be asking Dr. Suleman, right, what is his view on the Prime Minister's leather jackets? Is that by design? Or is that by omission?
The thing is, he manages to pull it off.
Yeah.
I do not have an issue with what he wears, but I do think it's inappropriate for a Prime Minister to wear a leather jacket. But as long as...
I am a functional designer.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I hardly comment on aesthetics.
Exactly. So, you see, when you talk about design and all these things that you're working on, these apps that you're making for children, for elderly, the elderly people, I think I'm going to be one of those people very soon, because I seriously believe I'm going to lose my words someday. Don't look at me like that.
No, I'm trying to.
Whenever my memory doesn't work,
you're my co-host, I'm worried now.
I have this thing, and my son says, you know, you're just growing old, and it's not that you have a disease. People start to forget things. Yes, it's aging, and you should not connect it to a disease. So when you talk about these things, how are these things helping people who belong to the underprivileged section of society? This is my fundamental question to anybody who's sitting on the other
No, I think I completely agree, and I think that's why
end of the table.
When, you know, somebody told me that, you know, the problems people have in Western world are synthetic.
Yeah.
That's not a problem, you know. Biggest problem is the train is late for 2 minutes. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great problem to have. But we got, unfortunately, some real problems.
No, they do. They have real problems.
The different kind of, you know, different kind of. You know, so, and when we talk about our problems and different kind of problems, I think, again, technology can play a fundamental role, and design can play a role. For example, I work with...
I'll come back to this example, another break.
Sure.
Right? That's also by design. this is the design of the program.
It's a beautiful intervention.
It's an intervention.
Timely interruption.
Yeah. So we're going to come back, just take a short break, and please stay with us. Welcome back. So, Doc, we were talking about our environment, and we were talking about the uniqueness of the problems that we have from the aspect of design. Right? And how we need to solve them. So, one of the things that at least I've noticed, and I've started noticing it even more, is access, right? Design for the differently abled. Right? If I'm in a wheelchair, it's very difficult for me, right, to get around to most places. Even our very important places, even like LUMS, there isn't very easy access for people in a wheelchair. How do we change that? How do we change that thought process and saying, look, it's got to be inclusive, it's got to be for everybody? I mean, just this studio, I mean, I'm sitting here, if I have to bring in a guest.
We were thinking of
we were thinking of a guest. So how do we get a guest in?
You know, we had last week a conference at LUMS. We had a project and we ended that project. And we talked about inclusive living and assistive technologies.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that.
Assistive technologies.
And the first thing I talked about there, we had representatives from WHO also, is a mindset issue. You know, when we take people as numbers, and when you bring cost-benefit analysis in that, there is no way that you're going to fix this issue in Pakistan. Because when you talk about numbers, what do you talk about? You say, there are 5 million people or kids who don't go to school. Why would you focus on autism? Well, they're two different worlds. You know?
They're two different worlds.
You say there are so many people in hospital who don't have a cure, or you can't address their heart issue or diabetic
issue. So why worry about the ramp?
Ramp, you know. And the problem is when you start confusing these two things, you will never be able to fix it. The first issue is the mindset issue. You gotta fix that mindset issue, and that has to happen from home. We need to train our kids. For example, at LUMS, you will find students who will talk about this economics when relating to these issues. Sir, why should we talk about this population when we have issues there and we can have a bigger impact?
Why can't we talk about everything?
So
this is exactly what happens when you talk about animal rights in Pakistan.
Animal rights in
Pakistan.
Pakistan.
They say, oh, human beings do not have rights. So, I mean, why cannot these two discussions be taking place simultaneously?
And I think that's a mindset issue. That's the first thing.
It's very important.
Very important. And the people need to take lead on this. So that's exactly what we talked about, that, LUMS has accessibility committee, and we're doing it's one of those universities where still we are very accessible, but no way closer to how it should be.
Absolutely.
So I think that's our first important thing. So we need to sort of educate, we need to change the mindset so that people take it. And secondly, this whole mindset, because they're disabled, and they can't become the normal citizens or
Yeah.
become a normal part of the society. And that's absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
We have seen that autism on a high functioning level can, kids can become part of mainstream.
Right.
You can actually slow down the dementia process. You can slow down Alzheimer. You can bring people back to the mainstream slowly,
Yeah.
maybe completely.
Yeah.
Or you can actually sort of slow it down. I think we need to, mindset is the first primary issue.
This thing about elderly people, because I remember my grandmother, and I happen to be somebody who's familiar with these terms, and I've seen the world, and I'm kind of educated, and I kind of. So I didn't even realize that she had dementia or Alzheimer's or something when she lost her memory kind of completely. She didn't lose her language, but she would be looking at things, for instance, on television, and she would think they were real people.
Yeah.
And she would make up stories, and she would mix people, and she would have like her history, all her personal history wasn't in chronological order, and it was because she had lost two of her children. My mother and one of her other children, she had 3, died.
Yeah.
And at early ages. I think that must have, but we didn't even know.
No, so that exactly my second point was awareness. We don't even know what is happening. So, in Pakistan is one of those countries where autism is diagnosed, I think, maybe
very late.
Very
and
late.
dyslexia.
Yeah. I have seen people who are being diagnosed with dyslexia when they were 22.
Oh, God.
How does it happen? I don't know. But this is how we are doing it.
We put it down to different things. It's just naturally slow.
हमारे पास दो
इसका साबुन slow है.
No, we have a term which we use very often because I do a lot of this research. We go to school. We talked about Rising Sun, Excellent Initiative, Turning Point, Compass, और बाकी जो initiatives हैं. The word I've heard again and again, Dr. Suleman, don't worry about them, they're shy kids. The parents in their home environment.
Yeah.
Shy kids, that's a different phenomenon altogether. What is a shy kid? And then you sort of frame it and label it a different way, and then you never understand the root cause. And dyslexia, so we worked, we received a grant, and we worked on Pakistan's first application which actually screened people for dyslexia in Urdu. Not in English, Urdu. First application. So we're now running a trial in 3 different schools.
Right.
And hopefully we want to launch this by August 2019. So every major school should have it. And then they should screen it.
Urdu is very important here.
Is in any case going to help people increase learning abilities, right?
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about. It's about cognition.
As I said, I really wanted to be focused on people who do not have access to things.
Yeah.
The financially privileged people have. At least they have the information. There are so many children who are unfortunately born in homes where they don't really have the parents don't really have the financial means to even take them to what should I say?
Remedial,
the doctors.
Remedial.
Even to doctors, they don't even
rehab centers,
They don't even understand if there's something wrong, and there are all these children who are beaten up in schools because apparently they don't understand, they don't learn. पढ़ते ही नहीं हैं. लेकिन वो I think if you people could start seriously, let's all of us start. Let's all of us start.
So we at LUMS, we started working on a sort of a national working group on assistive technologies.
Very important.
So we really want to make sure that WHO tells that assistive technology is your basic right.
Yeah, it's a fundamental right.
If I'm differently abled.
Yeah.
Assistive tech, which supports me, is my basic right. As simple as it can get.
Yeah.
Internet is my basic right. Similarly.
Yeah.
So it's as simple as, there is no rocket science, and I think that's where we need to focus on. But Mehr, another thing I like to reflect on, when you talk about people, with the low socioeconomic class, people who are underprivileged, there is one direction which we talked about, accessibility. Another thing I think which is very important is that how can you make this technology available to those who live in rural areas?
Yes.
Designed for development.
Yeah.
So people are working in this area a lot. So those people who don't have smartphones,
right?
How can you support them?
Yeah.
And I think that's another very interesting area Pakistani designers and researchers need to focus on. And we're doing a fine job. But I think agriculture, agri-tech, people need to know what is the weather.
Yeah.
Would it rain tomorrow?
Yeah.
The quality of the crop, the quality of the fertilizer.
I was doing some farming, and I'd actually learned from a consultant. So he used to send me an SMS with just 3 things on it. right? What the temperature was going to be, whether it was going to rain the next 3 days or not, and what is the humidity factor, which is the three things.
The Dehati people, you know, they rely on their senses and their instincts. Okay, but there's a kavva going crazy on the roof.
But those kavvas are no more there now. That's the problem. The climate change and everything else has changed.
Yes.
So the kavvas are not there. Those chidiyas are not there. You know, so all these things have changed.
But I think, but in villages, there's still.
No.
I remember my nani. She used to make these little.
Your nani was doing it 50 years ago.
No,
30 years ago.
Okay. Yes, okay.
30 years ago.
Yes, so she
like you
used
said,
to,
the covers were there, the sparrows were there.
She used to make these little tiny balls of atta and then put them on the roof, and there would be like so many covers.
Yeah. No, but I think, so my point is, look in a good, nicely designed product for people with special needs, for people in rural areas, or even for everybody else in Pakistan is very important, because Pakistani government would never be able to give us enough things. Pakistani government would never have enough resources for people with different abilities, for people in villages.
Inshallah, it will.
Maybe in a long term, inshallah. You know, but when I say Pakistani government, I mean, you know, as a state, as the current government,
it has limitation of resources,
as a resource, because we do have limited resources, unfortunately, at the moment. You know, so
and it is about solving that problem and saying, you know, we've got limited resources, but we've got to solve this problem.
And then I think that's where the design as a beautiful process, as a tool, as an intervention comes in, because it helps you to understand what the problem is in a very systematic way. It helps you to focus on that problem, you know, in a very holistic manner, and then helps you to provide a solution which is relevant and very contextual
within that
environment. And I think with that you can actually solve problems. For example, we have, I don't know the number, I don't want to misquote it, but we will have one maybe clinical psychologist for 10,000 people in Pakistan, for example. You know, something like that. Something like that. So if we work very, very hard, we might have 10 or 20. How do we bridge the gap?
That's not enough.
We work with technology so that we make it accessible, we make it, you know, available, so that people can start using it.
So technology helps you scale
things up,
right?
You know.
It scales solutions.
And the problem is that a badly designed technology would not help. And that is where the power of design comes in. That is where the power of human-centered design comes in. That you understand the needs of human, you make sure that their needs are being addressed, and then you design a product and service, you know, which helps them. And that is where I think Pakistan, maybe Imran Khan, needs to look at design from the government from a very different perspective.
I think it's something like, you gave the example of Facebook, and I'm just thinking about everybody around me. People who work in our houses, the domestic staff, and everybody's on Facebook. They can access Facebook, they can post things, they even know how to...
Even if part of life.
Seriously, it has become yes.
I'll share something that happened today. So we had a session that we wanted to webcast, right? Because we wanted to connect to Quetta. Right? We were having a session in Lahore, and we wanted the cohort in Quetta, sitting in Buitams, the university there, to also be participate. And we didn't have the right camera. So I called the CTO of this channel, and I said, Suhail, I need a camera. And he said, what kind of a camera do you want? So I said, this is what we want to do. He said, okay, I'm sending you something. He sent me a small camera, little camera that size. And it was beautiful. Just a small webcam. The result was perfect. Right? The sound was perfect, the picture was perfect. And I said, Suhail, I'm not giving this back to you. So when I came...
You just did.
No, do you know what happened? When I came, so Aftab's coordinator came and said, oh, you got a camera from the CEO. So I said,
so
I'll
he reminded,
back.
No, but
what
you
I'm
brought
trying
it
to say
back.
is, there are, the smallest problem, right, can be solved. Now, for us, it was fascinating that we were looking for we ordered some cameras and all that. We're thinking something big. And here's this little thing that solves that problem even better. So it is rethinking, it's reimagining, it's looking at things in a totally different context, different angle, and saying, there is a solution.
There is a solution.
Right? If I apply my mind, if I apply design thinking, right? If I look at it as a problem that I can solve with my creative ability, then
and that it is for everyone.
And I think one other thing, a couple of things I'll certainly like to say. There's a good opportunity to talk about it. First of all, very often people think, when they think about design, they always think about a digital experience. And I think one of the most important thing about design is that it covers all aspects.
Right.
It's a digital experience, it's also a non-digital experience.
Yeah.
Design is also about space design, this set design, the way we are sitting here, the way people are standing all over here. I think that's a very important thing. You change this equation slightly and the whole experience
It'll have
broken.
a different outcome.
It's broken. We swap our seats, you know, all of a sudden, the whole experience would change. So I think design thinks about all those touch points and then bringing this holistic view. Another thing I think from a Pakistani perspective, which we, if we can spread the word, design has a big role in policy making. So governments, for example, in Australia, in USA, in Canada, in UK, they have special national design centers which are helping them to solve complex problems. The problems they don't even understand. So I think at Pakistani level, we've been trying to make this sort of national council kind of a thing in Pakistan. We've not been very successful, but we're trying on it. I think what Pakistan also needs on a national level is this design council, which also advises government, which also tells them, look, these are the problems you need to focus on.
The design of our cities.
Exactly.
The design of public spaces.
Public spaces, you know, it's the way roads are being designed, you know, the way cities are being designed. You know, we have forgotten.
The way all these plazas have been constructed
you know,
in Lahore.
So the city design, and that's where the National Design Council comes in. It tells you, look, and then, you know, in my very humble opinion, I don't want to offend people, it's not an arts. You know, it's
Please offend people.
It is not art, right? It is design.
It is design.
Again, design.
I'm
So
sorry,
design-
I love art.
Design
you know?
is not art.
If you come to my office, you see that how much I appreciate art.
Yes, I see
I
it
don't
all
have a
over.
design object. But, you know, please don't confuse these two
That's
things.
true. So we're coming to the end of the
Design,
program.
Sure.
So if you were to put together 3 or 4 things and say, this is what we really need from the design aspect, what would those 3 or 4 things be?
Okay.
So you talked about a National Council of Design.
So I think the first and the most important thing, in my opinion, is that we start spreading the design education, the design mindset in schools, universities.
Start with children.
Children, you know, bring it to the early age, and then, you know, combine and make this holistic approach for teaching kids about design, computational thinking, design thinking, and that's very, very helpful. I think that's the first important thing. Second, in my opinion, is that to formalize this design education in our design schools, in our art schools, and very specialized classes. Separation, you know. And that's, I think, also very, very important. And we have excellent people. We don't need to import people. We have good people, and you know, that's also very important. Third thing, in my opinion, is that, you know, because we start producing these good students, they will start serving businesses, and then businesses would find value in design, which means we will go towards more knowledge economy. Because if you look now, still the mindset is that designed in California, made in China. You know, so the construction happens, labor job happens in Pakistan, India, China.
But we're not designing it.
But we're not designing it. So I think we need to focus on that, design also in
should
Pakistan.
have that, hone that ability.
India is doing a wonderful job. India is a creative economy.
Even the motorbikes have changed.
Exactly, you know, so they have done a wonderful job, and there is no harm in following that. You know, one of our teachers used to say, you know, अच्छी बात हिंदुस्तान की दीवार पे भी लिखी है, उसको सीखो. You know, so there is no harm in following it.
No, you have to.
We have to. And fourth, and the last thing, I think, the National Design Council, so the complete outreach spectrum. You know, so you make, you do good events, you come together as a community, you make a design council, National Design Council, and then you work very closely with the government so that we can advise government, help government to take decisions which have empathy. Which are...
That word again.
Empathy, you know,
It's
understand
the key word
people.
of our show.
Understand people, understand their problems, and be a government which try to put itself in their shoes.
Brilliant. So we've had we've had a discussion. We're going to have more of these. So you're webcasting the 2 days, the UX conference?
UX conference, we're doing that on 2nd and 3rd of March.
On the website?
On the website, also on LUMS
website. Which is UX Pakistan?
UXPakistan.com,
Okay, so UXPakistan.com. Make a note of that. The entire conference is going to be webcast. Most of the plenary sessions will be webcast. And we will want to hear from you what you think of design. Thank you for being with us.